Our next presenter is Harry Doupe. He is originally from Fort Langley, the birthplace of British Columbia, who many years ago took his first steps into the world of stand-up comedy. In the years following, he would go on to do more than 4,000 performances, some of them prestigious, but most far from it. Though he did become the first comic to play the Air Canada Centre in Toronto 3 times. While keeping one foot in stand-up, he began to branch off into other creative territories, eventually writing about 400 hours of broadcast television and producing a similar number of live events, many of those of the fundraising nature. He returned to the Valley in 2016 and since then has lent his experience to local events and generally has tried to maintain a creative presence in his life. He's here to tell us all about his journey in comedy. Harry, please.
Thank you, Ian. It's Ian, right? Yep.
First joke.
All right. In late 1982, I went to Punchline's Comedy Club in Gastown to watch their amateur night, and I left wanting to try it, which I did for the first time 2 weeks later. It was December 7th, a clever choice date-wise, as I realized that no matter how badly I bombed, historically it would be greatly overshadowed. Pearl Harbor. I did okay early on, and 3 months in, I won this contest, which was nice, but more importantly, some people who saw it gave me my first professional writing gig. That's right, me winning a contest put on by 20th Century Fox led directly to me being paid $50 to write sayings for erotic fortune cookies. It's easy to be seduced by the glamour of the road. In the mid-'80s, there was a huge stand-up boom, and there were road gigs everywhere. Unfortunately, most were booked by people, often someone's nephew, who only knew one thing, making sure the next show was as far as possible from the previous one. Case in point, leave Toronto on January 31st to drive for the first show the next night in Fredericton, New Brunswick. Then from Fredericton through Truro to Sydney, Nova Scotia, Sydney through Truro to Bridgewater, Bridgewater through Truro to Charlottetown, Prince Edward Island, then to Moncton, Moncton through Bridgewater to Kentville through Truro to Amherst, Amherst through Truro to Yarmouth, Yarmouth through Truro to New Glasgow. No show in Truro. Or take the Saskatchewan run, which in our case had us driving there from a gig in Ottawa. So Ottawa to Saskatoon, Saskatoon back to Yorkton, Yorkton down to Moose Jaw, Moose Jaw up to Prince Albert down to Regina. It was exhausting, but I think it helped make me the person I am, a person who hates bookers. At its core, stand-up is a high-risk game that makes you do things like drive 1,000 miles to San Francisco to do a show or fly yourself to Toronto to do a 10-minute set on a show where in those 10 minutes, one person's going to decide whether or not you get to work for the largest chain of comedy clubs and one-nighters in the country. Sometimes it works out. Another fun perk of the road, though, is finding out how other people would like to spell your name. So here's Harvey Doupe, Harry Dube, Henry Dube, Harry Doupe, Harry Duke, Doupe misspelled 2 other ways, Harry Poop, and one where they spelled comedy wrong. The Harry Allen Dodge one, they spelled my name closer to the other guy, Mike Williams, because his name was Dave Richards. I moved to Toronto in June of '87 with some friends at a place by Bathurst subway station. Only 3 stops east was Bay Street, where Yuck Yuck's main club and offices were. First time I got off at Bay Street, I made the mental note to myself, work is east, west is home, not realizing the broader sense of how true that would be. A few years later, I took a bus to Saskatoon on an off day and met with the manager of the Broadway Theatre. And 4 months later, I promoted my first ever theatre show there with my pal Brent Butt. To break even, we needed to sell 275 seats, and 3 days before the show, we'd sold 15. We ended up selling over 400, and I knew I wanted to do more of that. Learn through doing. And after that, Brent and 2 friends wanted me to produce a big tour of Saskatchewan for them. So 6 months later, we did 23 shows throughout the province, and man, did we lose a lot of money. Learned you don't put on shows in farming communities during harvest. On the plus side, a few times since then, I've won bar bets with people who bet I couldn't name 20 places in Saskatchewan. This is Joe Baudelaire, a mentor of mine, and was a huge boost to the industry. In a short period, he got the country's first stand-up TV show, Comics, on air, started producing award shows and making them smart and funny, and headed up the winning bid to give the country a comedy network. He put me on a show, Comics, and he was the one who got me into writing for award shows. Award shows can be fun, and I ended up doing more than 40 of them. They're big and exciting, sometimes glamorous, and oftentimes pay horribly. It was like that my first 3 years of the Juno Awards. They pay so little because they think you'll still take the gig just to have it as a credit. And of course, they're right, because here I am years later still talking about when I worked on the Junos. Thing is, you never know what will lead to what. One Friday, a producer called me and asked me to donate my time to write a live, star-packed 3-hour tsunami fundraiser on CBC that was happening in 6 days. It was a great event, and from the tsunami gig, I got hired to help create and produce Craft Hockeyville, and samples of my tsunami scripts got me hired to write for the Olympics. So you just never know. Writing for the Olympics is great, but it's a grind. You need total focus because it's 12 to 15-hour days for 21 days straight, and days of the week don't even matter anymore. It's just Olympic Day 10. But by that point, your brain is so scattered because you're writing 5 things for tomorrow, but it's really for 2 days from now because where the games are being held, it's tomorrow already. They say never to meet your heroes, and I say shut up. I've been fortunate through the work I've done to meet a lot of my heroes, and 90% of the time it's been great, surprisingly so in some cases. So what, are you afraid of finding another human? You know, what, you don't want to put yourself in a position to be disappointed? Thousands of people still go to every Canucks game. Stop being so stubborn, meet your heroes. I moved back to the Valley in 2016 and right away fell in with a bad crowd, sorry, that's an earlier draft, with interesting and talented people who I ended up working with at CIVL Radio, the Abbotsford Arts Council, Fraser Valley Music Awards, Mission Folk Festival, and producing things myself. Another early find was Jeff Edwards' Creative Third Thursdays, which continues to inspire. After all these years, it's weird to think of the different things I got to do, and there are some who think it adds up to more than what it was, which is, it was fun, but it never paid much. As for now, where I'm at now, if I may paraphrase Sultan to Swing, I don't mind if I don't make the scene. I got a daytime job. I'm doing all right. Which doesn't mean I don't still enjoy doing creative things. Like a few years ago, I did a thing on Instagram called Stubs, where on that day's date, I would post a ticket stub and tell a story from an event I'd gone to on that same date years before. It was mainly a writing exercise, and I did about 700 posts over 2 years. But it also gave me the chance to think about the visual aspect of it more, which I'd never really done before. It is said, with age comes wisdom, and I'm not sure if that's true. It's also possible I didn't understand the quote. In any case, I don't think I have enough wisdom just to go giving it away. But here's a piece of advice. If a photographer is shooting you for a magazine and has already taken hundreds of pictures, and they ask you to pose and smile in a way that you never would, don't do it, because 1,000%, that's the one picture they're going to use. Man, I hate that picture. At my age, which is 32, I've learned it doesn't matter if I'm not doing the things I used to do in the past. Like most things, creativity is a process and evolution, and to whatever place that has taken me, for now and upcoming, finding new ways to be creative will always be a part of that. Thank you. Thank you.